Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV in association with the Art of Football. As we know, we are partnered up with them now. So if you need anything in the way of vintage or retro football gear, go and check out their website. The link is in the description at the bottom of this video. Hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts, prints, anything you want, hoodies, go and have a look on their website. Check it out. It doesn't matter what club you're for, they've got some really, really good stuff. But back to the matter in hand, as you can see, unfortunately, no Reese this week. He is otherwise engaged. He will just have to put up with myself for this week's review. But it is another positive one. It's another massive 3 points. And it's another different type of win as we saw off Johnny Jackson's robust Wimbledon side, I will say, to be polite, by 2-1. Team news, of course, came out at 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, and there was a couple of surprises. There was 3 changes from Neil Harris from the team that had won at Rochdale the previous weekend. It was the trio of Robbie McKenzie, we think, who had a knock, Sean Williams and Aidan O'Brien. They all came out of the 11. McKenzie out of the 18 entirely. They were replaced by the returning David Tutonda, Alex McDonald and the returning Tom Nichols. So the team in full was Glenn Morris in goal. It was a back 4 of Shay Alexander, Max Emar, Connor Masterson and David Tutonda. It was a midfield 4 of Alex McDonald, Timmy Dieng, Georgie Lapsley and Alex McDonald. And Dom Jeffries, and the front pair was Oliver Hawkins and Tom Nichols. First half, I thought we started really, really quickly. We got on the front foot and we really, really pressed them high up the pitch, and we had a couple of throw-ins from either side, and then there was a corner that Maxima won after recycling possession after one of them already mentioned throws. And there was a really early chance, wasn't there? Decent set play delivery from Alex McDonald, and Ollie Hawkins just peeled off his man at the back post. Should have done better, I think, in truth. I think a man who scored 2 in his last 2 games will probably be disappointed without Hawkins. He gets there and he makes a really good contact, and he probably makes too good a contact if there is such a thing. And the ball flew into the Brian Moore standing amongst those Wimbledon fans that were braving the wind in the open-ended area. But yeah, it was a positive start from Neil Harris's men, and we were definitely getting on the front foot. After that, though, the game just became really fragmented, really bitty. There was no flow. The referee didn't seem to have too much control, unfortunately. But next big moment was a big clash of heads, wasn't it? There was a smaller one before that. I think Harry Pell, and we'll get on to him, lovely fella, and David Tutonda, but both players recovered, thankfully. And then there was a bigger clash of heads between their captain Alex Woodyard and Timothée Dieng. And unfortunately, it meant that Dieng had to be replaced. He was flat out on the Priestfield turf for a few minutes, and he didn't look too clever, in fairness, as he walked round in front of the Rainimen towards the dugout, and was replaced by Sean Williams, who ended up getting a lot longer than he probably imagined, and Neil Harris probably wanted. It had become clear after the game that Sean had not trained all week up until Friday, and he'd only done half an hour due to a rib problem picked up at that win at Spotland last weekend. Yeah, and that theme continued. Couldn't quite understand Wimbledon. They've got good technicians. They've got some good players. Ali Al-Hamadi, we'll get to him second half. Josh Davidson's decent enough at the level. Jack Curry on the left is a good player. Woodyard's neat and tidy. But it just seemed that everybody sort of resorted to what Harry Pell was done. He was sort of put in there as a destroyer, and I get that. Every team needs a destroyer, but just crossed the line so many times. Swinging elbows, pushing people off the ball, going through the back of players. I was astounded that he didn't get booked first half. But like I say, the referee didn't seem to have too much control. There was then another injury for Gills, unfortunately. It was Tom Nichols. There was a skirmish on the halfway line as he tried to wriggle free, and it looked like he got stamped on. I'm not saying it was deliberate at all, but he certainly had weight applied to his ankle, and he had treatment, came back on, but unfortunately a few minutes later sat back down again. So that was the end of his game. So by 40 minutes, Aidan O'Brien was on as well as Sean Williams, and we'd already used up 2 of our substitutions. There was a save for Glenn Morris towards the end of the half in what was 9 minutes of injury time. Another strong challenge from Harry Pell, which I thought should have been a foul. Challenges Alex McDonald, goes straight through the back of him to win the header. But the most important thing was Glenn Morris managed to backtrack and tip it over the bar, and we defended the corner fairly well. Should Wimbledon have been down to 10 men before the interval? Alex Woodyard was booked for a foul on David Tutonda. Professional foul is how it was portrayed on Twitter. And then literally a minute later, we escaped down the left, and I think it might be Tatonda or Dom Jeffries tries to put the ball in. I know there was a little bit of link-up play between the two. I can't remember who tried to deliver the cross. Alex Woodhill puts his hands out and he hits him, and you see his reaction, head in his hands, as if to say, oh, I know I'm in trouble here. For some reason, the referee doesn't brandish the second yellow card. But that was it for the first period. Like I say, it wasn't fun to watch. There was no real quality. The early Ollie Hawkins chance and the Harry Pell header were basically it in terms of goal mouth action. It was attritional. It was a battle. But I thought we stood up to it okay. And we spoke to Glenn at half-time and said that it was there for either side to win, wasn't it? It wasn't a great game. But the main thing is, from both sets of fans and sets of staff's point of view, that was the respective sides were still in the game. It was a level playing field, and it essentially became a 45-minute match. Second half couldn't have started in any worse fashion, unfortunately, from our point of view. And ironically, it came from us getting on the front foot really quickly again. But we allowed a cheap turnover of possession on the halfway line. David Tatonda gave it away really poorly. Sean Williams then didn't look over his shoulder and had the ball pinched off of him. It had to be Pell, didn't it, that was going to be involved in the goal. Little clip over the top. We was out of our shape. Al Hamady, who we've already mentioned, got onto it, sort of inside right channel. And he did well to stand up. Maxima chopped inside, another step to the left. And it's a good finish into the far corner in front of 700-800 Wimbledon fans who went absolutely mental. And yeah, it was another test for us because it was the first time we'd gone behind at home with the new set of players. The only other game that we'd gone behind in since the takeover and the little splurge in terms of new additions was Mansfield, and we lost that game 2-0. So we was going to have to stand up and be tested again. And we went back to the Grimsby game. That was a thought process, I think, for me, and I don't know what everyone else was, but you're thinking, right, we got pegged back in that game after getting in front, and then we did really well to react and win it late on. But now we was going to have to go and not only level it up and then try to go and win the game, but the first and foremost would have been to try and get back on terms as quickly as possible. Responded brilliantly, to be fair, didn't we? There was a good block from Maxima before that, though, and we just looked a little ragged for a couple of minutes. But I thought after that, we really settled back into our rhythm. We was doing well to sort of stay away from all the antics of the Wimbledon players. And yeah, the equaliser arrived a few minutes later. I think it was less than 5 minutes between us going behind and levelling it up. Free kick for another poor challenge. Alex McDonald, I said to Boz on the match day live, I just thought he was running on fumes a little bit. He just looked to be blowing a little bit, and that's no disrespect to Macca. He's been brilliant in recent weeks, as has everyone, but he's played a lot of football after a really bad injury. Delivery was absolutely on the money, though, wasn't it? Sean Williams again arriving in the box, a brilliant header. Looks for all the world it's going in the top corner, but Nick Zarnev, you've got to give him credit. It's a really, really good save. Flings up a left hand and manages to sort of flick it onto the post with his fingertips. And if you watch the match day live back, Boz disappears because he couldn't see, because everyone was stood up. He thought he'd gone out for a corner. Didn't know that it hit the inside of the post, and then there was delirium, wasn't there? Max Emo was on hand, gets there in front of the Wimbledon defenders. He's more switched on, slams it in from about half a yard, but who cares? Raynham End was going off, Medway Stand was going off, Gordon Road Stand was going off, and it was another brilliant response. And we've said it hundreds of times on these types of videos, me and Reese and whoever else has been on, Jack and the other Reese for Gills in the pub, or Luke who was on recently, or Boz, Stocky, Glenn, Nicholas in the ground. It's a game before Christmas. If you go 1-0 down, you don't back us to get anything because we just couldn't score goals. But there's a feeling now that we can get back in games, even if we do trail. And we've done it brilliantly, didn't we? And I think it's always, you're always at your most vulnerable, is what they say, just after you've scored. And we took advantage of that. Harry Pell was booked shortly after. That got as big, not the same amount, but a fairly big cheer because, like I've already alluded to, you understand teams have to have destroyers. We've had Stuart O'Keefe in recent years who loves a yellow card, loves a tackle, but this was just weird because it almost helped us as long as we stayed away from getting involved, because it seemed then that every other Dons player wanted to do the same sort of thing, and they weren't built that way, all of them. Like I say, strange approach. And I've spoken to a couple of Wimbledon fans on social media over the weekend, and they've said it becomes a little bit monotonous. It's a bit weird, the way he approaches it. And I spoke to Ray Armfield, who was on the preview show with me last week, and he said we were too nice last season and we got relegated out of League One, so we tried to go the other way. But there's going the other way, and then there's going too far the other way. And I thought Harry Pell did that all game. He got another big cheer when he went off injured after flinging himself to the floor. He just seemed to spend the whole game, and I know I put a tweet out over the weekend, which has been well received by Gills fans after his little dig at Leighton Orient a couple of weeks ago. If he wasn't falling over or elbowing people, he was just chasing the referee around. It was borderline embarrassing from Pell, who's a professional footballer and a man in his 30s, but, you know, each to their own. We then had Chris Gunter booked for shoving Tristan Abrahams over in front of the Medway stand just because he'd picked the ball up. He wasn't trying to hold on to it. We were still trying to win the game, so we wouldn't have been time wasting. That was another strange one. It seemed slightly out of character for Gunter. He's never come across as being that type of player when he's played in the Premier League, the Championship for Wales at major tournaments. But again, it comes back to the point I was making. It just seemed that Wimbledon's players thought they all had to do it because Pell was doing it so incessantly and so consistently. Then we took the lead. What a hit from Shea Alexander. I've renamed him Shea Alexander-Arnold. That's probably a bit disrespectful because Shea can defend better than Trent. I'm joking, obviously. It's a really, really good hit. Technically, it's brilliant. Gets his head over the ball, his knees bent so it doesn't go over or over the bar or raise into the Rainham end. Initially, it's a ball in from Sean Williams to the left-hand side. You think Wimbledon have dealt with it, to be fair to him. Big centre-half heads it clear. Alexander catches it full on the volley against his former club, doesn't he? Just on the outside of the foot, so it just fades away from the keeper. It nestles right in the bottom corner. It's a brilliant goal from a player who was very good on the day. And I couldn't be more pleased for him, because if you go all the way back to the opening day of the season, he came on and he was at fault for Wimbledon's second goal. Didn't switch on at the far post, didn't jump for a header, which ultimately cost us the game. But he's another player that seems to be getting better with more confidence. Just a brilliant moment. And I think all the goals came in sort of a 12-minute spell. We've gone from being a team that can't find the back of the net for love nor money to now being something like the great entertainers. There's a form table over the last 8 with 3 points clear, with 19 points from 24 available. I think we're the second highest scorers in that period with 15 goals, and I think we're one of the best defensive teams in that period of time as well. So the staggering turnaround just is almost baffling. 7 points now from safety, from the dreaded drop line. 7 points away from it. Games in hand over teams around us. Anyway, back to the game. I digress slightly. There was a chance for Aidan O'Brien shortly after I thought was brilliant when he came on. I think if he'd got an hour or 40 or 90 minutes and played like that, he was a contender for man of the match. But it was another really, really good showing from Aidan O'Brien. Just seems to love playing football. Seems to love playing football for Neil Harris as well, which is good for us. Great feet on the left-hand side, little dart inside, drop of the shoulder, and tries to whip one far corner, but it was straight at Zanev, who held it comfortably. After that, I thought we saw it out fairly well. I think they had one half chance. Jack Curry forced a save from Glenn Morris, and then the rebound was blazed wide. Of course, there was more bookings for Wimbledon. Casey McAteer, I think it was, and George Marks, they both ended up in the referee's book. Final whistle was met with a proper Gillingham reception, weren't there? And we've had a few of them in recent weeks. 7,500 were in the ground at the weekend, which is absolutely brilliant. We know we had the full house against Crawley with the brilliant scheme that Brad Gallinson implemented, pay what you can. But there was no ticket deal for this, and Wimbledon fans, they came in their numbers 700-800, but there was still over 6,500 Gillingham fans cheering on their team, and it's brilliant to see, and long may it continue. It's a huge win. They just came to spoil. 5 bookings tells you all you need to know. Like I said right at the beginning of the video, really different victory. We had to dig in, we had to stand up and be counted, we had to deal with all their antics, and I thought we'd done it really, really well. And for me, from their goal onwards, I thought we were much the better side and actually deserved the points. Now is that time, of course, where we look at our opposition in more detail. We pick out their best player. The Don, I suppose, is all I can come up with this week, in truth. They're getting worse, these, aren't they? I do apologise. For me, it was Jack Curry. I thought he was very, very good on the afternoon. He was one of the players that still wanted to try and play, wasn't getting as involved in all the silly stuff that was going on that we've already mentioned. He wanted to get on the ball. He wanted to try and affect things down the left-hand side. He was trying to get on the front foot and drive Wimbledon forward. And he was a threat. He's a good player. Like I said, they've got good players, but they just sort of went away from that too much. And I think that almost helped us. because we knew as long as we didn't get involved and get ourselves silly cautions or a red card or anything like that, that we could then be a threat going the other way. But yeah, back to Curry, 90 minutes played, 70% pass completion, which is decent. There was a key pass in there. He also had 2 shots, one of which was on target and forced a save from Glenn Morris at 2-1. It's a save you'd expect Morris to make, don't get me wrong, but like I said, it was one of the players for Wimbledon that wanted to try and affect the play in a positive manner. He won 64% of his duels overall, made 3 clearances and 2 tackles, so he was willing to track back and do his defensive stuff as well. Yeah, he was the one for me that stood out. I thought Ami Al-Hamadi was a threat when he got the ball in decent areas, but he just didn't see enough of it. I thought Josh Davison worked hard, but was all huff and puff for me. So yeah, my best Wimbledon player on the day was Jack Curry. Now to Gills' man of the match, and there was a couple that stood out for me, but I'm not going to take the easy option this week like I did with Reece last, where I picked it as a joint award for Max Emer and Conor Masterson in the win against Rochdale. Emer was the other one in contention for me. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Again, he had one little wobble just after half-time where he let the ball bounce and then misplaced a pass trying to recover, but obviously scored the equaliser and was absolutely solid alongside Conor once again. It's a partnership that's really flourishing. But for me, it was the man that was right next to him that was man of the match, and that was Shea Alexander. He just looks a completely different player. He's really benefited from the new additions. He's benefiting from competition as well. He's had a little spell out the side, hasn't he, where Robbie McKenzie's been playing at right full-back and David Tatonda's been doing well on the left. Tatonda was then taken out after a little dip in form and McKenzie switched sides. And then this week it was Tatonda and Alexander in tandem in the full-back areas due to an injury to Robbie. So took his chance really, really well at both ends of the pitch. Yeah, it was dynamic, he was confident. There's a period of play during the first half which I've tweeted, and it came via Matt Phipps. Gets the ball on the right-hand side and he skips across the halfway line, drifts inside one, beats another, drags it past another, gives it to David Tatonda at left-back area. He then gets his head up, spots a great run from Dom Jeffries, who gets in behind, jinks past his full-back. We're a Tom Nichols touch away from a really, really good team goal, and it all starts from Shea, but there was plenty of good defensive work as well. 90 minutes played. 2 interceptions, 1 tackle, wasn't dribbled past once during the 90 minutes, which is a phenomenal stat. 48% passing, but it wasn't a game for loads of possession, which makes Jack Curry's passing stats look even more impressive, given how the game was played. He won 67% of his duels, so he was combative, loves putting his foot in, he'll challenge everything in the air, on the floor. 1 shot on target, which turned out to be a massive, massive winner, didn't it? So for me, thoroughly deserving, and a player who's been going under the radar this season. I think he's been very, very decent, especially in recent weeks. Man of the match, Shea Alexander. Final section, as always, is Gillingham's match rating, so we'll go through that by position. I went Glenn Morris, a solid 7. He's made a couple of saves, the tip over first half, the save from Curry second period. The saves you expect Glenn to make. Just generally very, very solid again, wasn't he? Come and claim crosses, come and punch crosses. Kicking was good. He talks, he commands his area, he leads his back 4. And then we move forward into the defensive line. Shea Alexander, we've already mentioned, so I won't go into too much detail. Gave him an 8. He was very, very good on the day. 2 centre-backs were Max Emer and Conor Masterson. I gave them both 7s for their performance. Again, super solid, the pair of them. They're getting more and more used to playing next to each other. I think both of them made just 1 slight error that we weren't punished for. Gave Max an extra 0.5, so he went up to a 7.5 for the goal. On the left, David Tatonda, thought he struggled first period. He looked to be a little bit isolated at times. He looked rushed in possession. He has games like that, we know that. He seems to be, when he's good, he's very, very good, but he's prone, and obviously he's at fault at least partially for the goal. But we thought he was a 6 first half. Thought aside from the goal, though, he was very, very good second period. So we went a solid 7 for David. Middle 4, Alex McDonald, tenacity, work rate, heart, hunger, desire, everything that you want in a pro. Done all of that again. Great delivery for the equaliser. He's unfortunately not ended up with an assist because Sean Williams' headers has been saved, but it's a pre-assist if that's a thing. I don't like to go too much into that type of thing, but a solid 7 for Macca. The middle 2, Timmy Dieng, unfortunately, didn't last more than 20 minutes, I think it was, so we gave him a 6. George Lapsley just didn't have enough of the ball in key areas. He wasn't poor, he worked hard again, trying to make things happen, but a 6 for George. Dom Jeffries, the other side, thought he was brilliant out of possession. Didn't always come off for him with the ball, but he worked so hard again. He covers the ground, still making lung-bursting runs in injury time, wasn't he, to get us up the pitch. Solid 7 for Dom again. Tom Nichols, unfortunately, another one that had to come off injured, 6.5 for the 40 minutes that he played. And Oliver Hawkins, thought was absolutely brilliant again. He was up three massive centre halves. He's having his shirt pulled off all the time. Not once did he moan. Not once did he go to a ref and complain. Just got on with it. Kept sticking to his chest. He kept bringing players into play, especially second half. 7.5 for Ollie. In terms of the substitutes, we gave Sean Williams a 6.5 again. Partial blame for the goal. But after that, he settled down and he helped us control the game and see it out. Aidan O'Brien, 7.5. Very, very good. Deserves a goal, or at least an assist, doesn't he? He's been superb in every single game that he's played for me. And Will Wright, we didn't give him a rating because he only played the last couple of minutes plus injury time, so not applicable. Right, that is it for another Monday review. It's another positive one. It is great to keep producing this content for you guys to watch. 2,390 subscribers now. We're very close to 2,400. So if you can go and hit that subscribe button and get us to 2,400, it would be massively appreciated. Comment down below. Let us know what you thought of the performance. Let you know what you thought of the antics, whether that's as a Gillingham fan or a Wimbledon supporter. Go and check out Reese's channel, German Gills. Go and watch his match reaction show. It's a brilliant channel from a different way of doing things, which I say every week. We'll be back Tuesday, myself and Boz, for Matchday Live against the returning Verdane Oliver and his Bradford City side, if he's involved. He wasn't in the 18 at the weekend, unfortunately, so I don't know if he's injured, but it'd be great to see Big V. Hope he has a stinker. Later in the week, looking forward, it'll be a preview show with a Harrogate fan, hopefully. But yeah, hope your Monday has been decent enough, all things considered, because you can go into work with 3 points to talk about again. We will see you Tuesday night for Matchday Live. Come over and say hello if you're there. Up the Gills.